Now, here locally, as far as running for public office, as far as running for the mayor of the city and county of Honolulu, you've had to go through the same thing because Hawaii is so cosmopolitan. I mean, we celebrate the differences here, and I've always been very, very proud of that. But as the mayor of the city and county, you in your tenure, things have gotten more difficult and more difficult because of the policies that you want to instill. Last night, you were able to get the rail approved. That's a big thing, but that's not the only thing.
Well, I think it comes down to two things. Number one, I was raised by my parents in Leahey to not look to do what is popular, do what is right. So if at the end of the day, that's what you believe is what is right to do, then you pursue it. And secondly, this is where one's sports background really comes in. I've always said that if you have a background in sports, whatever your field of endeavor, when those crunch time comes in, it's about acting with grace under pressure, recognizing that it's a team concept, recognizing that it takes everyone contributing and that you're just one part of it. And I think the best leaders are those that lift the level of play of their teammates, and that's what Barack has done. And that's why when people were talking about his lack of experience, I just know that he's going to bring in people who are smart, and maybe smarter than he is in some respects, but you leave it to his judgment to make the right decision. So in my particular case, the easiest thing for me to have done was not to do rail. Yeah. We would have coasted to victory. But I really believe that this is something that should be done. Every mayor that has held my job over the past 40 years has tried to do it, and the stars are aligned. I mean, we got one of the most powerful senior senators in Washington guaranteeing us that we can get that federal funding, and Illinois has never let us down.
Where do you go from here? And now that you have the vote, the approval regarding rail, where do we go from here? What's step two?
There's a lot of things that have to be done. First of all, I've said we're not going to go forward if we don't get a record of decision from the federal government, which is tantamount to getting the federal funding. So we've got to get the EIS done. We've got to get the preliminary engineering done. Those are very technical things, but we've just been notified by the Federal Transit Administration that we can proceed with preliminary engineering. So there's still a lot of T's to be crossed, I's to be dotted. But the main thing, gentlemen, is that people said, especially those who don't want rail, that they want the people to decide, and they decided. Mm-hmm. They decided by a margin as large as President-elect Obama's margin of the popular vote was.
When you look at rail, person of my age, when can I first ride it?
The first segment, if we can break ground in 2009, the first segment will be completed in 2012. But I've always said this, eventually this is about our children and our grandchildren. And that's where I'm hoping that people see the big picture of this. I may not be able to ride it immediately, see the direct economic benefit, but it will come. And we need it now more than ever with the economy starting to tank and the state failing to come forward, in my opinion, with a great economic stimulus plan. This will help inject dollars into our economy immediately if we break ground in 2009.
You've put up with this question, I'm sure, so many times since being elected once again last night. But let me pose this once again. Senator Inouye said last night at the celebration that this is just the beginning for you, that perhaps it's on to Washington or Washington Place. And if I may ask what that may entail, what the future may portend as far as perhaps running for governor one day, or perhaps running for a seat somewhere even higher?
Look, I've always been upfront and straightforward in all my answers, and all I wanted to do was to leave my options open. I think what most politicians do, they'll tell you what you want to hear. So the easiest thing, again, for me to have said was, I will stay the full 4 years. I'm going to serve the second term. I'm saying that in 2010, there's a governor's race. I would like to at least consider it. Mm-hmm. There's perhaps some congressional vacancies and the like could occur. But it doesn't mean I'm going to go. It doesn't mean that I'm going to stay. All I want to do is consider it. So ultimately, the people will decide, not only here in Honolulu, but throughout the state, and they'll indicate, hey, he's doing a good job. He should take his talents and abilities elsewhere. Or just stay right there, because you haven't picked up my curbside recycling.
That's another one. I think that's just a great idea. The situation here, coming off of this very tough campaign, was it the toughest?
Well, it wasn't the toughest, but what made it difficult, it was that, you know how we like to play one-on-one. This was not a one-on-one game. This was 1 against 8, 1 against 10. You had a former governor, you had the present governor, you had 3 present council members, you had a former council member, you had a former congressman. They were all in there, a Senate president. They're all in there. They all had agendas beyond 2008. You know, they're looking for the governorship. They're looking to the U.S. Senate. So that's what was happening here. And the other thing is that I've never been in a race where there was so much misinformation and outright false statements that were made each and every day. I mean, here you have Senators Inouye making it really clear that federal funding could not be transferred to the Easy Way plan of my opponent. And she kept saying on TV, looking right in the camera, oh, federal funding can go to my plan. You know, that just drove us crazy because the record was clear, yet they kept repeating it. And sometimes the media would just let her say that. Or the day of the election, the day before the election, she would say something like, oh, his own poll shows me ahead. And the media didn't stop to say, well, where's that poll? Because there was never any poll that showed her ahead. We were always double digits in this race. So from that respect, Jim, that was frustrating for me and my team.
So you're not going to have dinner with her anytime soon?
Yeah, I will. You know, local style. I talked to her already. I said, Ann, you know, we were friends before. In 2004, she liked me. She didn't like Bainum. Today, she likes Bainum. She doesn't like me. You know, I mean, at one time she was a Republican. Now she's a Democrat. You know, things will be okay with Ann.
If we can once again switch topics into what we normally discuss on this show, and that's sports.